You know, one of my favorite presidents who I thought did a lot more by doing less was Calvin Coolidge. And he said, "I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom." And that was an overarching symbol and phrase and umbrella by which a lot of this session was guided. We wanted to do more for the people, so they would have more freedom and opportunity for themselves. And the more government you have, the less freedom and opportunity the people have. And this session, from beginning to end and everywhere in between, was about doing more for the people of Missouri. It was a session of historic accomplishments and substantive reforms that will improve the quality of life for all Missouri families and pave the way for a better business environment for Missouri employers, workers, and job creators. It was a session of great historic compromise on issues that have eluded effective legislative solutions for many years, and some that even predated this current majority that is now a decade old. We saw a General Assembly come together to pass the first income tax cut and the first major tax reform policy in nearly a century, and to find a solution for our bankrupt, insolvent second injury fund. While we could not make good on our promise to push the tax credit reform package across the finish line, the House did move that historic piece of legislation further than we ever had, made more compromises than ever before. We restored and moved that issue to the point where it was one vote away from completion in the Senate. So the House kept good on its promises to not only do major tax credit reform and very much in alignment with what the governor has proposed, but also to create new exciting incentives for Missouri businesses and workers across the state in multiple different industries. We also pushed to the point of one final vote in the Senate, restoring reasonable liability limits in medical malpractice cases. I think it's important that we laid secure, solid groundwork for those issues next year, which will be legislative priorities. And I have a strong feeling that those issues will come across the finish line in the Senate next year. I'm extremely pleased at how efficiently the House worked as a legislative body, how our new freshman members played key roles on very important issues. The results speak for themselves as we passed a large number of bills that we identified as caucus priorities at the beginning of the year. Great substance, historic significance. This includes not only the EEE agenda I outlined in my opening day address, but numerous bills that protect and preserve the values that are important to Missouri families. We have a lot to be proud of in this long list of accomplishments that will remind the people who elected us that they made the right choice in sending this common sense supermajority to Jefferson City to represent them. With that, let me run down an abbreviated list of some of the major accomplishments I saw as the 2013 legislative session. The budget was a challenge this year, and that's all I'm going to say on that until our budget chairman comes forward to speak on those issues. Economic development. The list is extremely long, as you can see, and these are just some of the bills I could have put up on this agenda. The tax cut legislation, House Bill 253. Again, one of the most aggressive reforms in nearly a century. Folks, when you look across this country, the states that are succeeding have three things in common. They have a certain tax policy that's fair and low to job creators and to small business. They have a fair labor policy that treats workers and employers on a level playing field and provides the ultimate in worker freedom. And they have a fair litigation policy that lets those who are going to go to court know with certainty what the outcome is going to be. We moved issues on that agenda all the way through from top to bottom. The tax reform package was one of them. We solved a crisis that was facing our state for well over a decade, maybe close to 2 decades, dealing with the now insolvent second injury fund. That didn't happen overnight. It largely happened under Governor Nixon's watch when he was Attorney General, when he oversaw that fund and was supposed to defend it for the 16 years that he was in office. Attorney General Koster, one of the first items he undertook was to suspend the second injury fund because it was a failure. It was insolvent. It could not take care of workers or job creators. Representative Todd Richardson and many others who came before him worked tirelessly on that issue for as long as this majority has been in place. This year, we came to a conclusion. It's historic. It's significant. I've been receiving messages from job creators, from members of the bar on both sides, from workers across the state to say, thank you. You have done well. The Amateur Sporting Events Tax Credit Program signed by the governor already back in March. Historic that it was done so early. It's been in the pipeline and jammed up for 5 years. That is true job creation. I've spoken with the folks on the ground in several of our metropolitan areas across the state since that bill was signed. They have guaranteed me it will bring new job creation and new revenue to this state, and they are so excited to put it into place. The Benevolent Tax Credit Extension Program, to help our not-for-profits, a great public-private partnership, to help those organizations that government can't do all these things, and we have organizations like food pantries and pregnancy resource centers that will. Paycheck protection, a step towards true worker freedom, an issue that I believe has a supermajority of support across this state. Put into place, finally workers in our state will determine how they want their wages spent, how they want their dues placed, not big union bosses, not the fat cats in the labor organizations, but the workers themselves will have that option. Ultimate freedom for them. Couldn't thank Representative Eric Burleson enough for the heavy load he carried in that subject area. Prevailing wage reform, another item that will help the taxpayers of the state get more bang for their buck. True reform that has never gotten through this legislature before. Unemployment benefits through Senate Bill 28, the use tax and freight line tax credit through Senate Bill 23, the Port Improvement District Act through Senate Bill 257. I could go on and on. The list, it is long. Energy, gas sisters through Senate Bill 240 will help our infrastructure rebuild and update itself. Something that was, again, long overdue. It was never, and it had been a long time since it had been reviewed by this legislature, well over a decade. The Uniform Wireless Communications Infrastructure Deployment Act, also under the energy agenda. On education, I said from the very beginning I wanted to concentrate on funding and reform. Funding because that is one of the areas of our budget that Governor Nixon, frankly, has gone after quite a bit with his veto pen over the last several years. We made sure that we provided historic levels of funding for K through 12 education and also funded higher education at higher levels this year. We've done that. We've either held the line or increased funding through education, all through the economic crisis. Our Constitution requires a 25% threshold. We're well over 33% on funding. It is a priority for all Missouri legislators. Promises made, promises kept on the education funding level. Finally, and I say this not because I simply believe it, but because the Senate sponsor herself, Senator Jamila Nasheed, told me just the other night that I have helped her move significant education reform for the children in our failing and unaccredited schools across the finish line through Senate Bill 125. Again, the first time this legislature has moved historic education reform for the kids who need it the most, the ones who have been in failing school districts nearly my entire lifetime. And finally, I can't say enough about the gentleman from St. Louis County, the Scharnhorst District, I feel like I'm still on the floor, Dwight Scharnhorst, for passing Bryce's Law after working on that for nearly 8 long sessions. It will authorize donations for scholarship granting organizations for those little people amongst us who deserve it the most. Republicans have always stood for helping the truly needy. Young children with autism, I can't think of more deserving folks. More options, more hope for those parents who struggle every day. Finally, accountability and oversight. That has been a hallmark of this House, and especially this year. From everything from the House taking on its constitutional duties to investigate and ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse and overreach by our executive level, we have undertaken that role. We have worked, and we've seen these stories are sweeping the nation right now. And whether it's hard questions that still need to be asked and answered on the federal level, during with the Benghazi scandal or President Obama's IRS, or down here in the state with Governor Nixon's DOR, Missourians and citizens across this country are tired of government overreach. tired of government abuse, tired of government going beyond the scope of the law and violating the very law that they also are sworn to uphold and protect. The Missouri House, through its investigative powers, along with the Missouri Senate, through its investigative powers, will continue to investigate this issue until we have two things: truth and solutions. Beyond that, I have to give a lot of credit to Representative Jay Barnes and his Government Accountability and Oversight Committee. Two additional scandals where the wool was pulled back and sunshine was poured in a much-needed basis. There was the flawed approach that DSS was pursuing in covering up records of children who have been harmed or injured, or even, I say, have suffered death, that are in the hands of our state protective care. By Representative Barnes' tenacious oversight on that and my support of him on that issue, DSS has stated that they're going to reverse their position and make those records that were sunshineable once sunshineable again. Again, we have to protect the little people among us, and these are wards of the state that we owe the ultimate protections to. Finally, on that issue, Representative Barnes was instrumental in pushing back against a flawed approach that would have circumvented the intent of the Federal Welfare to Work Act, which was promoted by President Clinton throughout his presidency and would have doomed countless Missourians to a lifetime of poverty. Again, beyond the scope of the legislature, back in dark bureaucratic hallways, these things were attempted to be implemented, and Representative Barnes shone the sunshine of truth on them, and that procedure, again, was greatly amended due to his great work and all of my members' support. Again, finally, and I truly mean this time, we helped Missourians who contact us every day continue to promote, defend, and uphold their values. Missourians stood up for the Second Amendment with one of the most far-reaching protections of that from federal overreach ever passed in the nation through House Bill 436, the Second Amendment Preservation Act by Representative Doug Funderburk. Jeannie Riddle's Preventing Webcam Abortions Bill, House Bill 400, for right to life issues that are so near and dear in a bipartisan way to a supermajority of this Missouri House. Right to farm, protecting the largest industry in Missouri, the agribusiness industry, protecting Missouri values, Missouri farmers, Missouri farming families from out-of-state interests intent on changing our way of life. Veterans were a huge focus. Representative Sheila Solon worked tirelessly on this issue along with Charlie Davis and many others, improving life for military members and veterans through a whole host of Senate bills, some are on this board over here, protecting children from sexual abuse. Right before I came in here, Representative Marcia Hafner said to me, the children of Missouri are a lot safer today because of the actions of the Missouri House. And whether it was through HJR 16 or some of the bills that Representative Hafner worked on, Representative McCarty, I truly believe that as well. It was historic, it was significant, it was monumental. I did not do it alone. I did it with this common sense supermajority behind me. I thank you all for everything you've done through these 70 legislative days. Thank you very much. Thank you.